Welcome back to Hashtag Single with Jeanette Bonner. I am not a relationship expert or sex therapist. I'm just a regular New York City woman navigating the world as a single, independent feminist. Hashtag Single is about having honest conversations with other singles in today's device-obsessed culture. So I hope you'll join me on this interesting, challenging, and complex journey as we navigate the ins and outs of singledom. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Hashtag Single. It's a very special Halloween episode of Hashtag Single today because everyone knows being single is the scariest motherfucking thing that you can be for Halloween or just in life in general. So I have with me today two fantastic comedians. One is here live with me in the studio and one is calling in. I have Robyn Lynne Norris with me. Robyn, thank you so much for being on the podcast with me.
Oh, thank you. I'm very excited.
And Andres is in the studio with me and Robyn's calling in. So we're talking to a voice in our head, which is just going to be comedy in itself.
Yeah, sort of just how I actually go about my life.
You do? You're like,
exactly. I know there's a voice in my head. It's like, do I listen to it or I don't?
It's an LA voice, actually.
Always. It's like, go by Coastal. And I was like, I will, babe. Just give me time.
So this is a little different than our usual structure for Hashtag Single normally. If you guys have listened to the podcast, I usually interview a strong, independent, yes please, single female about their dating experience, mostly New Yorkers, and then have a little male guest pipe in at the end that we refer to as the voice of the patrarchy.
Little,
yeah, immediately. A little. Oh, there only a little man
little
comes
baby
in.
guest. Yeah. I just meant that they get less time, really. I have a little guest at the end. Nothing about their stature, but I thought I would do something different, and because I happened to meet or happened to attend this really phenomenal show in New York City called Date Me, an OKCupid Experiment, because one of my friends was in the show. And I thought it'd be so cool to talk about creating work with the comedy that is surrounding dating and online experiences. So I brought in two people that are, interestingly enough, comedians, but also creators and artists who have made work around sex and dating.
Mm-hmm. And single.
Yes. Robyn's not single, I don't think, right?
Are you not single? Okay, well.
Robyn's
not anymore.
You're going to love my story.
No, you're in good company right here. You are in good company right here.
I mean, congrats. That's amazing.
You
that
win.
You're in a relationship.
You won the game of life.
Thanks. It took forever, so don't.
Oh, we know, girl. We know.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm going to do, we'll talk a little bit, Robyn, about you and your experience and your journey and your path. And then we're going to switch over to Andres. And then I'm going to sort of talk to you guys both together about sort of some universal, I don't know, themes that come along with creating work around dating and being single and comedy and stuff like that. Does that kind of sound good?
Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds
and obviously,
great.
if either of you want to pipe into each other's kind of...
Oh, I will. Oh, I will. I have questions.
Now I'm worried.
I'm looking to learn, you know?
Good. That's why I'm here too. So Robyn, let's talk about you.
All right.
So first things first, for those people that are maybe not familiar with your show, which shame on you if you're not, but I'm going to read a little blurb that I got from Broadway World. So Date Me, an OKCupid Experiment from Broadway World. 48 million Americans have tried online dating. Hashtag Date Me, an OKCupid Experiment, is the outrageous true story of Robyn, who is unlucky in love but determined to understand it better. She logs onto the world's most popular dating site, OKCupid, creating 38 undateable profiles as an interactive scientific investigation into online dating. Robyn unwittingly sets in motion the social experiment of our generation. Part improv, part sketch comedy, and entirely hilarious, Robyn makes one conclusive result: there's no algorithm for love. And the show was developed with Diane Alexander, directed by Lauren Lataro. Correct me if I'm saying these wrong, by the way. Features lyrics by Robyn Lynne Norris, Frank Katie, is that right?
Coyote.
Oh, there we go. Coyote. Amanda Blake Davis and Bob Ladewig.
Yep.
With original music by Sam Davis. Oh, and following a 3-year run at the Up Comedy Theater in Chicago, the show ran for 10 weeks at the Westside Theater in New York City, which bravo, by the way, because that is no easy feat in New York City. So snaps on our end.
Thank you.
So Robyn, tell me how this show came to be.
Okay, so there's a reason there's so many people involved, because this was a 7-year journey, and it was actually a complete accident. My background is comedy, mostly improv and sketch, and I've written a number of shows over the years. Basically, I'm an actor as well, so basically, you write to perform and create your own material,
make your own work.
And yeah, exactly. So I came up in Chicago at all the theaters there, the comedy theaters like Second City, IO, Comedy Sports. And then I moved to Los Angeles, and where I live now. If you've ever lived in LA, I don't know if any of you have, it is wonderful. It is so soul-suckingly lonely when you first get here. It's just crushing. So
oh, no. And I imagine if you're single, it's like 10 times worse. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And so it's like, Chicago and New York have that great city vibe where you're always bumping into people or it just has this great vibe.
There's a communal spirit here. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. That's exactly it. And so in LA, I have that now. But when I first moved here, I was very, very lonely. I lived in this tiny studio apartment, working a million jobs, just trying to get by, and previously had made my living as a performer. So I was just like in a bad place.
Yeah.
And my friend Lori called me one day. This is a little different than what's in the show, so this will be new for you, Jeanette.
Ooh, give me the juice.
This is a true story.
I'm ready.
Yes. So my friend Lori called me, and she had just created her first OKCupid profile. And this is, believe it or not, right before Tinder. So Tinder even wasn't a thing.
I remember. I go way back too.
Yeah. So she created an OKCupid profile, and she was like, can you just log on, see if I wrote anything weird? And honestly, at that time, I was like, sure, I'll help you, but I am not doing online dating. I was very snobby about it, not because there's anything wrong with it, but because I'm this naive person who believes I'm going to meet my soulmate in real life, after years of just codependent, terrible relationships with comedians. I don't know why I thought that I was going to have this magical moment from my studio apartment without getting online.
Because we all do.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Why.
So I had this belief, and, I said, okay, I'll help you out. But, for OKCupid, you have to have a profile to look at other people's profiles. And again, I was like, well, I'm not putting myself out there. The thing that's great about OKCupid, though, is you get a chance to write a little mini biography. And since I'm a writer, I was like, oh, all right, well, let me think of the most stereotypical, cheesy thing possible. So crazy cat lady. Mm-hmm. And so I created this character called Tracy Loves Cats. And I really only spent 5 minutes on it. I just typed in all caps.
And this was just in order to check out your friend's profile.
Yes. I was like,
you're a really good friend.
I know, right?
Well, I didn't really put myself out there, and I was probably a little bored. I was working from home, and I was like, fine, I'll take 5 minutes. I answered every question like, I love kitties. If you don't love kitties, then you won't love me. Beep, boop, beep, bop. It was real bizarre. And okay, I was like, okay, that's kind of funny. Anyway, checked out Lori's profile, totally forgot about it. And then a few days later, logged back on, and I just had hundreds of messages. And I was like, what is this world? And these guys were just speaking in all cat speak, a lot of them,
God.
like meow, meow, purr,
no.
meow. I'm like, what is this? And of course you get what you've all experienced online, like the typical, lewd, ridiculous stuff as well. And it just hit me, I was like, hold on, this crazy cat lady is way more popular online than I am in real life.
Oh, that's
so
tragic.
What's up with that? Yeah. So then I was working on some stuff with my friend Bob Ladewig at the time, some shows. And I took this idea to him, and I was like, what if we just kind of did an experiment and it was originally called Undateable.
Yeah. And
we were like, let's create undateable personalities. So it has nothing to do with, how people look or anything like that. It's really what are stereotypical, what you think are undateable personalities, and see if people are into them and see if they're as popular. So that's where it all started. And I did the whole thing. I'll try to keep this short. Is we were very careful about it. We had all these rules. Like, we were like, we're not going to try to make people fall in love with us and catfish them.
Yeah,
because like,
that's
if people contact us, then we'll get back.
I was going to say, you're kind of messing with people's lives a little bit.
Yeah. Their hearts.
Yeah,
you know.
Totally. Well, here's the thing, and I agree, and I'm actually a really overly empathetic, sensitive person. So I know you saw the show, Jeanette, and it was more like a comedy thing, and the characters were so bizarre that I don't think people thought they were real.
Yeah.
That being said, sometimes people did, and I started to get obsessed. Like, I'd write everybody back and be like, oh, you seem really great. I just started seeing somebody, and so the story is actually like, oh, I thought this would be really funny. And then it became very, very real.
Yeah.
And you see all these people putting their hearts out there, and not just the messages that I would get. It would be, I'd go onto their profiles and I'd be literally up at 5 a.m. just crying, for people. Like, I'd assume they were all as lonely as I was. And so that's the thing about this story, because I've never been interested in like messing with anybody's heart. And it really came from this thing of like, what's wrong with me? However, when you get on the internet like that, you're bound to, you actually are thrown into interacting with people. So that's kind of the genesis of the show. And it is very funny, but it also was a real learning experience for me in terms of, everybody out there, like, beautiful and, or disgusting or whatever. Everybody's got their thing, but they're all just people looking to connect. So.
Absolutely. Were you doing this to try to get material for comedy?
Oh, that's a great question, because obviously I am a comedian. So I'm not going to lie and say I didn't think it was funny, especially at first, like the messages to Tracy Loves Cats in particular. So we were just doing it to kind of see what would happen. We weren't like, let's do a stage show. We didn't exactly know. We definitely knew there was something there, though. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I'm not going to think too hard about it, but I always wonder sometimes, I think we all have, like, is this profile real, or is someone...
It's always a lie. At some point, it's always a lie. That's me being jaded. I'm like, it's always a lie. Don't trust it.
I saw this show. All these profiles are fake.
It is always a lie to some degree, because even if you're being you're putting the version of you out there that you want everybody to see.
Yes, exactly.
And there's something beautiful about that, I think. But it is the version that you've created.
A curation of yourself, yes.
Ooh, well
exactly.
I'm really smart, just to let everyone know in this room.
Most smart people usually say things like, I'm really smart.
I have a question for you, Robyn. So, like, how long did you keep up these profiles, and what specifically did you like talk about with people that like wanted to interact with the profiles?
Oh, that's a great question. So 2 things. So my co-creator, Bob, he created some profiles, and then this was over the holidays, and in LA, it's again, another particularly lonely time. And I won't reveal too much, but I had just suffered a big personal loss that you kind of find out in the show, which is why I was losing myself in talking to other people to avoid what had really just happened. So it was over the course of the holidays I would say, from the start of the experiment to the first show, it was a year, but I was really only online for about 4 months. And I became obsessive. Like, I'd create new characters, and what I would talk about I stayed in character. That was one of the rules. So when people would try to be disgusting with us, if I was a princess, I'd have to answer as a princess, a Disney princess, whatever.
It's like next level, Robyn.
That is method. That is method acting.
Yeah.
Lie.
Well, and it was funny because Bob, we had a character called Marry Me Now, Stat, and his whole thing was that he already had a wedding ring. He's just looking for the woman, the finger to put it on.
Oh my God.
And which is ridiculous. But Bob would kind of start being Bob and interact with people. And I was like, Bob, you can't do that.
He could have called it up.
Feelings for you. And so that was very early on. And then we kind of were like, no, you have to stay in character. So for example, I had a character called Boobs and Wangs, like Wangz. And her lifelong dream was to work at Hooters, but they wouldn't hire her and she didn't know why. And so it was just so stupid. It was such a dumb character. She would dress up in Hooters clothes and But I had people reach out and be like, "Hey, I know the manager at such
that's
and such
amazing.
store." You know? And I was like,
Oh, people are nice.
Okay, I know how I'm going to get my next job.
I know.
Boobs and wangs
But they
too.
Boobs and
were
wangs.
nice. And, I mean, and that's kind of where what I loved about what happened is very rarely, honestly, and I think the internet has changed since I've done this, but most people I don't think really thought I was a real person. And I think they actually were like, this is so funny because you don't see stuff like that.
Right.
And so, for example, the Pioneer, I had a character Pioneer in a box, and she worked at a historical reenactment center and never broke character. So she would just talk about butter churning. And so when guys or women would interact with her and get kind of, try to make sex, not jokes, but like get really dirty, she'd just stay in character and, meet me in the barn and we'll.
Oh my God. Meet me in the barn.
All this makes me think of like that subculture on Reddit with the first one I think about is like the furries, because there's probably a subculture of people that are into like pioneering drag.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, absolutely. And that's the funny thing, too, because I do get asked, like, why didn't you do anything like furries or anything with like fetishes? And one, because I was very naive when I was doing this experiment. I really was just like, why am I undateable? But two, because I don't think fetishes make somebody undateable. So, because everybody has their thing. That being said, you're absolutely right. There probably are people who are historical reenactment fetish people.
I will say if you're into a fetish, you're more likely to have a partner or like someone, or you're more of in a community that is like, doesn't make you undateable. It makes you more dateable.
Yeah.
Because you're
pool
sort of, there's a
smaller.
pool and it's like you understand it and
You
like
all
the
speak
world.
the same language.
Exactly. And within the furry community, there's like fetishes within that, which is crazy. Like specific
so many
animals.
layers.
I've Googled it once.
Right.
I'm sure. One time only.
I Googled it once. And I was like, that's it. That's enough for me.
Robyn, I'm curious, how did you know this would be like inherently theatrical? Like, did you ever think about writing a book or a blog or, having a podcast? What about it made it into a show?
Well, I think that's so funny because I do still want to write a book, because I think that when you see the interactions in print, there's something even more real about it in a way. Mm-hmm. However, my background is stage performance, and because I was with Bob and the LA show, we are all comedians from, Second City and various theaters. I think that there's something about making this a live show that brings the humanity out of it. One of the lines towards the end of the show, one of the questions on OKCupid is the most private thing I'm willing to admit. And I would scour through all these profiles and people I interacted with to get these answers. And one person said, I hate not being in love, which I thought was so powerful. And when you have 6 people on a stage say it all at the same time, then you get these moments of like, oh, this is everyone. And and I think, but we didn't know at first how we were going to stage it. Our original director, Frank Cayetti, directed the LA and Chicago versions. And so we developed it with him, but we have that comedy background. So it was interesting because you saw it, we have the profile names, we have things on screens, and it's very tech heavy, but there's something to having people face out and just say what they're looking for or see them interact that I think achieves something more than it would in a written form of a blog or a book.
Totally.
Initially.
Well, you have the element of the audience.
Exactly. And everyone's been there to some degree, whether you've online dated or not. You've all had experiences. I think we reflect the audience. I had no idea this would be a 7-year journey. I thought I was doing a show for 3 months in a small black box in LA when it started. It just happened to be something that, connected with people.
Yeah. You had a 3-year run in Chicago. Is that so?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's intense.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I mean, as a performer, me too, like getting a performance to show up for 3 performances, I find is hard, much less 3 freaking years.
Yeah.
And then 10 weeks in New York is, you're competing with the entirety of our theatrical, world. Phone book of shows here. What was the most surprising thing that you learned from either the experiment or the experience in either Chicago or New York?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, from the experiment, and I kind of touched on this, is I actually needed to do it at that time in my life because I had lost, I mean, I guess I can say it. I had lost my best friend who I thought would always be, you know, my person.
Yeah.
And I think that I needed to, I had also had a horrible track record of dating, like just emotionally abusive relationships. You know, it's a little too deep for a comedy, but like I had flatlined. And so by not being myself, but interacting with people and seeing the humanity of people, it did heal me in a way where I really needed it. Like I said, I got too obsessive and then I was like, I got to stop. However, just doing that and diving in, and it made me feel way less alone. And I had thought at the time, like, I am having a really horrible run here, you know, in my life. And it made me feel less alone. And then it did open me up to actually dating again. And then I met my husband. So that's in terms of
that's just annoying.
I'm obsessed with you.
You say that's annoying.
It sure is. That's like literally a Disney story. Like that's like Princess Diaries 3.
Well, it is, but if you know what led to that, it's not annoying.
I do, because I've been single for 10 years and now I have a podcast about it. But, you know, there's no white knight coming unless Andres wants to get together.
And I initially didn't want to put that in the show. I wanted to leave it open-ended because I actually has been that lonely person for so long that I was like, we don't need to put a bow on this.
Right.
We don't need to have her. Yeah.
Oh, and, people love that shit. Come on.
People love that stuff. Yeah.
They do.
So it changed.
I think you hit on a lot of things that people talk about just in terms of dating, of the loneliness, the isolation of it. And then it's so nice that you're able to recognize the humanity in it as well. I think that is the biggest goal of all of us. So I think that's really cool. And bravo for making a success financially or creatively or both out of a really sad time in your life. I think that's really so. Snaps to you. We're going to switch over to Andres, if you don't mind. And then again, same thing. If you have questions, feel free to pop in. So just to, I have a little bio for you that I found on the very reliable internet. So tell me if this is wrong.
Okay, we'll wait. Can't wait.
Andres Govea is a stand-up comedian based in New York, but hails from McAllen, Texas.
Yes.
Andres has performed.
My parents live. Oh my God!
In McAllen?
I interrupted you.
No,
they live in Mission, Texas. So I fly.
Oh yeah.
You guys are like,
I used to live in Mission.
Best friends, neighbors.
Okay, we'll text.
I have no idea what that means.
Wow. Okay.
Andres has performed at Brooklyn Comedy Festival, Brooklyn Comedy Collective, Union Hall, and was recently profiled by Vulture Magazine and BD. So you've been featured on, I love this the best, public access TV comedy showcase on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Chris Gethard. Is it Gethard or Gethard?
Chris Gethard.
Gethard.
But I'm not his publicist, so you can say whatever.
I kind of like, I'm sure no one's made a joke about the fact that his last name is
Gethard.
Gethard. But Gethard
I will the next time I see him.
Sounds more professional and adult. So Chris Gethard presents with comedian Chris Gethard, who is a self-proclaimed phone call enthusiast.
Yes.
And you were a guest on his call-in segment called Sexy Talk.
Yes.
Where people call in and talk about their dating lives. So how did that come to be?
Chris Gethard has a weekly Wednesday show that is a public access, and he gives it to comedians in New York City.
So freaking cool.
Amazing.
And hilarious and genius.
Always good, always funny. What am I, TBS? And my friend Josh Sharp got it that week, and he asked me to be on, and it was just like sort of a call-in show, 3 call-in shows in one, and I was sort of like the sex and love commentator. To be honest, I have no background to be talking about love and sex whatsoever. I mean, yes, I have it and I do it, and sometimes it works. But
well, I'm not like an expert.
No one's an expert
either.
No one's an expert. But yeah, he asked me, and it was very fun. It was very cute, and it was a lot of like, ooh, sexy story time.
Oh, I watched it. I love just like, you just had to sit there and receive
information,
weird ass stories.
And I sort of just like commented. Yeah, I was like, wow, do that again.
You are living your best life. But you've also been a featured comedian in You Up.
Yes.
Love, a Brooklyn comedy show and storytelling competition where audience members are invited to share an embarrassing love or sex story. So I know you do other comedy as well, but I'm really curious, like, what is it about love and dating that makes you or other people want to do comedy around it?
Sure. I mean, like, sort of with what Robyn was saying, was just that this is sort of going on in our lives, and it's like you write what you know, and you sort of like take in what is happening in your life currently. And a lot of times it is sex, and it is like dating, and it is like trying to find love, and it is hard all the time.
Both literally and physically.
Heyo.
We can't help ourselves. Yeah, I guess you're right. It's this prevalent part of our culture. Honestly, it's such a mainstay in our culture. If that number is true that I got from Broadway World, 48 million Americans are online dating.
Yeah.
You have a good chance that even like Robyn, like, or maybe you have been online dating and you're not with, like, if you're in a partnership now, that means that this is sort of a constant that we almost all have in our lives. That's a crazy thing to say.
Truly. I mean, you see specials all the time with comedians and everything. It's mostly about like sex and love and like relationships. Yeah.
I started thinking about this because it started with Robyn and like making a show around your life, experimenting with online dating. And then when I started looking at your work, there's so many shows in New York City.
Thousands. That
center around, there's a Tinder live show, I think.
Yes.
Where you show up and then someone stupidly just volunteers their Tinder account. Is that right? Is that how it works?
I think so.
Yeah. I've also seen other shows at Joe's Pub where they always are trying to pull up audience members. And you do this in your show too, Robyn. Pull up audience members and like maybe match them.
That's crazy. That's insane.
But I mean, how is that any weirder or harder than like trying to meet a stranger based on a photo of them in their car?
I get it. That's true. I say like my generation loves the Tinder and the Hinges and all of those, but a lot of our interactions happen over the DMs. If you're aware of that. So it's a lot of like people like messaging directly, which is very strange, but also like very new age. And I sort of like it.
So you think it's more about the fact that like we've shifted as a culture to just our entire lives are virtual and online?
I think so. I mean, like I mostly meet people in real life, but a lot of times I and other people DM.
It's on Instagram.
Because it's on Instagram and you sort of
for
like
a date?
Yeah. For
no.
Like dates and be like, hi, like what's up, blah, blah, blah.
No.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have never been asked
you should do it.
For a date on my Instagram. I'm doing it wrong.
You should. I mean, that's where it's all happening. I mean, it's all social. So it's like, I see your picture. We follow each other. We have mutual friends. Like, what else is the like, it's Tinder, but it's like, yeah, I'm just using it directly.
Yeah, it's probably more real.
Yeah, you can be like, hey, what's up?
Honest.
I sort of like you. Or like, hey, I like your profile. I'll date online for you is what I'm saying.
That's really super. Now I do feel like I'm doing somebody out there, please, who follows me on Instagram. Will you ask me out on a date via DM? Okay. I don't mean to be that girl to be like, tell us a funny joke because you're a comedian. But if I know that you've got like a hilarious dating or sex story that you definitely want to share on hashtag.
Sure. I mean, I wrote this joke when I was like 23 and I dated an 18-year-old. I loved him.
Wow.
Yeah, he was 18, but I know it's strange, but he was from Germany.
Why is that strange?
I guess it's not strange at all. I mean, it's strange because like I was 23 and he was 18, but he was from Germany and they use Celsius and I use Fahrenheit, you know?
Okay.
So it's like sort of...
That's why it was weird about the relationship.
I'm sort of justifying the fact that I dated younger. I once dated a white boy and it's problematic in a way that I wanted him to wear a puka necklace during sex.
Is he Hawaiian?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I just watched a lot of gay porn where white boys wear puka necklaces in the 90s. That's sort of it.
Yeah. You know, your turn-ons are your turn-ons.
And I can't do much about it, but I can put a stop to them, you know?
Was he open to it?
No.
It's just a
and
necklace.
he doesn't need to. And he didn't need to, you know?
You're like, I want you to look like, actually, here's the picture. Watch this video. I want you to do that.
I want you to do this, please. Yeah. Some jokes.
That's it? There's got to be something worse in there. Come on.
No, those were bad. I'm trying to think.
Those are tame.
I mean, I once went out with I went to Red Lobster on a date through a Tinder profile. And I was like, Red Lobster in Times Square. Thank you very much.
Ooh,
and then
I love it already.
The dude paid for everything. And then he was like, you want to go back to my place? I was like, yes, absolutely.
You bought me cheddar biscuits, honey.
Yeah, I'll do anything you want. I'll do anything you want. And then we hooked up, didn't see him for 3 months. 3 months later, he messages me and he's like, have you seen the new Star Wars? And I was like, what? No, not at all. And I've never watched Star Wars. And he was like, do you want to go see it? I was like, sure. We went to go see it in Times Square. I don't know why, but he doesn't live there. I don't live there. And I was like, okay, cool.
Safe space.
We watched, did not talk throughout the entire thing. And then he was like, do you want to go back to my place? I was like, yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
I was like, just take me to your, we didn't have to do all that. You spent thousands of dollars on
I'm
me.
disappointed you didn't go to Red Lobster.
I should have asked. I was like, let's go to Olive Garden now. But I didn't.
That's, I feel like if that's the worst thing that's really happened to I mean, we could go toe to toe, my
if
friend.
we're trying to think Tinder dates, Robyn, please come through if you have any weird Tinder stories
yes.
as well.
Let's just throw it all on the table.
To think of, I broke up with, I was seeing this dude for like a month and I didn't really like him and I was like, oh, I should probably like put a stop to it. I said, I met him on Tinder and I was like, oh, I'm not really feeling it. Let's just like stop. And he like cried. I was like, oh no. I know. Life is hard. Life is hard. And then I was like, okay, well, I have to go. I have to go do a show. I have to go do a show. And then he was like, can I come with? And I was like, what? And he was like, can I still go see your show? And I was like, I mean, sure, but like this seems strange. And then I did the show. I killed Avi.
Obviously.
And then I was like, okay, bye. And he was like, we need to talk. And I was like, what? Literally, I walked home and that's like I'm not going to exaggerate. That's an hour walk home from where I was like at. And we walked and it was like me telling him like, it's okay. And like literally like, him crying as he walked me home and I was like, we're not even that close and I get it, but we have to move on.
Wow.
Oh,
I know. He's okay.
I feel like I'm him.
Really?
Did you cry on dates?
Well, not on dates. I guess that you're right. These are early dates. No, I guess that's not true. But I would have like relationships with people and then I would just be like, we've got to talk.
Oh, absolutely. Same.
Sounds so familiar to me.
Being in a relationship, very much different than like dating someone.
Yeah. That's very true.
I'm so glad everyone agreed on that.
Yeah,
absolutely, for sure.
Wait, Robyn, did you ever meet anyone from the OKCupid Experiment aside from your, I believe, future husband?
My husband. Well, I did not because we did set a rule because to not meet anyone in person. Like, none of these conversations ever got remotely close to meeting up. It really was kind of just playful banter about the characters. So I know it would be way more interesting if I did, but that kind of would cross a line in terms of what we were doing. And because I met my husband before, the show was even up, I don't have any stories like that. I can tell you a pre-online dating story that was real bad.
Yes.
I had dated a guy who was a comedian. And
Classic.
I was doing
already doomed.
Don't do it.
Doomed, right? I mean, I have the real sad ones like, you cheated on me on my birthday, all that. But this one I think is sad, but just surreal. So I was doing a show at Comedy Sports, which is a, interactive short form theater. And this guy brought his mom and the new girl he was dating to the show that I was in, and it gets worse. It gets so much worse. So I was like, okay. And I'm an overly emotional person anyway, but I was like, I gotta go on. I gotta do the show. And I think he was in the show, I believe. Then we do this game called Day in the Life where you interview an audience volunteer, and the volunteer that they chose was his mom. And I was on the team. It's 2 teams of 3 people, and I was the person that ended up having to play his mom, who was sitting next to the new girl he was dating in the audience in the show. It was just, I've had so many things like that where I'm like, what is happening in my life? Like,
you should have started the scene by saying, you're grounded.
Right. I know. It's so true. But of course, being me, I'm like, nothing's wrong. Everything's perfect. This is normal.
We're just, this happens to everyone.
Yeah.
It's Chicago. I'll top this off with one of I've told my worst dating story on the podcast before, so I'll tell you my runner-up story. It's a little darker. This was a second date. And while we were on the date, this guy's phone keeps going off. And I finally was like, do you need to get that? Like, is there something, it's all good. I'm here. Just go answer your phone. Mostly because it was annoying, right? Like, go take care of that. And he's like, oh, it's just my girlfriend. That's not the point of the story. But yes, I was like, I'm sorry, what? And he's like, sorry. I mean, ex-girlfriend. And I was like, okay. Is everything
you slipped
okay?
Already. You slipped. Even
okay?
if that is true, you slipped already.
And he says, yeah, I broke up with her and she's really upset, but she works for my company. And so now we're having a fight about insurance. And I'm like, wow, that's like a lot of red flags. And I'm like, okay. And then he silences the phone. I mean, it called. I was like, I think you should just go talk to her maybe and just like ease her mind. And he comes back and he's like, it's all sorted. And then the phone goes off again. And I'm like, I think, maybe you should go take care of some things. And he says, no, this one's my drug dealer. I just have to go pick up some coke. I was like, could this get any worse? Like, who is this person? And I was like, oh, as you do, because it was like probably like a Wednesday at happy hour, and he had to go meet his dealer to pick up coke. And he said this so casually, as if we all just do coke, and he asked me if I'd like to go with him. And I said, no, thank you. He's like, you don't do coke? And I said, I don't actually do coke. And he was like, that's crazy. I feel like you would be really good on coke. I know. I was like, I know, right? I was like,
you specifically would do good on coke.
Yeah. And then he said, why don't I get some coke and we'll have sex in the bathroom?
Oh my God.
On coke. I know. And I was like, this was like a second date. And I was like, this is so bad. It's unbelievably surreal.
Truly.
I feel like what the most surreal thing about it is you were giving off no vibes that any of this was anything.
Like I was into it. Yeah. I was like, there's so many red flags. Your ex-girlfriend is an employee of yours. She's calling you. She has health issues.
Insurance? I was like, what specifically, guys? Also, never date someone at work.
No!
And like, in a big way.
Or here's the lesson, everybody. Silence your damn phone when you're on a date, right? I'm so glad we've all experienced horrible dating stories together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is, we're going to tie this up. Like, what is, I don't know, if we could like, what's one positive experience that dating, being single, doing this experiment, and like being able to vocalize all that stuff through comedy has done for you guys, both of you?
Robyn, you can go first.
Oh, sure. Well, I'll tie it to one of your previous questions. So when I did the run in Chicago, I loved it because every night after the show, I'd go down to the bar and I would just talk to people. So this is, 6 shows a week. And I got to hear people's stories. And I'm kind of introverted, but for some reason I'm totally fine talking to strangers all the time. And I think being able to do the show, perform the show that many times live and getting, like I said, the experiment helped me because I saw the humanity of people, but then a double bonus to get to make people laugh and make people feel things and then get to talk to them afterwards and meet so many people and hear so many people's real stories was actually also a really wonderful experience.
Like the connection around this is all a shared experience for us.
Yeah. And it ran totally the gamut of people who were like, oh, I've totally experienced all that. Online dating sucks. To people who were like, I met my partner online, on all the different platforms. And I got to hear more about all the different platforms because I exclusively did this on OKCupid. And I did a lot of research on everything. But every year there's, at least a couple new ones that pop into popularity. So,
you'll just have to write a new show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
No,
we're going to write a new show.
Perfect.
You and me. We're going to take over all the other podcasts. I'm not podcasts,
right.
all the other dating apps and make a show
dating
around them.
apps. Yeah.
But I'll throw that question.
Was my favorite thing.
Yeah. I feel that in my soul. Like this is why I have the podcast because I want to share my frustrating experiences and like I wanted to take away the shame from the word single and just like a lot of people are afraid to admit it or talk about it or they talk about it when you ask people they say, well, I'm single, like in a sort of self-depreciatory way. And I was like, but why is that a problem? Like you're okay. You're happy. You're living your best life. If you haven't met someone someone who hasn't met your standards yet, that shouldn't be embarrassing. It's like, oh, I haven't been picked for gym class yet.
Right.
I
thought you were going to say something.
I was like, they always say like create your own content, be your own thing. I was like, create your own gym class, Don't wait to be picked.
Yeah, that's right.
Make a gym class. For me, what was the question?
We talked about like, well, how has like being able to vocalize your experience through comedy or your work, your art, like helped you in the process of dating and being single?
First, I think just to address like the single thing, I really did ring true to me that like people are ashamed of being single, and I think people are ashamed. I mean, they're definitely ashamed before actually being in a relationship sometimes, but a lot of times when you get out of a relationship, you feel shame because like it didn't go successfully.
Yeah, like I failed.
I failed, or like this didn't work. That means I don't work. Blah blah blah.
I'm a failure.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. But you were like fine before, like you were saying, like you were happy before, you had a life before. And so for me, doing comedy, and like it's for all of us in the sense that like we're trying to work things out, and we're like, we know that this is relatable content because this is a shared experience. And this is sort of like, when I go on stage, I'm like, I hope you all respond to this because I sort of want you all to like connect with me and therefore laugh and make me feel good.
It's all about me at the end, obviously.
Well, it is.
Well, thank you both so much for being here, both physically and also just sort of spiritually, Robyn.
Yeah.
We feel your presence with us in this room. I think it's so cool that both of you have taken something that other people view as negative and turned it into a creative medium for you both as a way to voice your experience and also to bring some humanity back into it and some connectivity. I think that's super honorable. I think it's kick-ass, and I hope you both continue to create new work specifically around dating. No, I'm kidding. No, just in general.
Relationships.
Yeah. Just and I guess continue to connect with people who are all going through this experience together. So thank you guys both for being here.
Yeah,
thank you.
Sorry, I cut you off, but I just want to say thank you. And I really thought what you said about, kind of your mission statement for this podcast is really lovely. So
thank you.
Exactly the same back to you.
Thanks. Yeah. Rock on. Oh, we'd high five you if you were here. All right, guys. So that's going to be it for this new episode, Halloween spooky episode of #single. We will catch you next time.